Good night, everyone, and welcome to night, I think it's three of our How to Survive Computing series. Tonight, we will be talking about your academic life as a computing student. We'll be going over tips and tricks on how to, manage the academic life and ensure that you set yourself up for success. So tonight will be just as important as the other night, but it will be more on a casual tone, not so much facts and information that you need, but more just advice and things like that. Tonight, I will also be going over any extra questions you might have. So, in the comments, just if you have any questions, be sure that you put them down there. Um, if you know anybody who's doing computing and they're not here, I would suggest you call them and tell them to come along because there will be some important information being dropped as there is every night. Okay, so let's start. The first topic that I'll be going over is staying motivated as a computing student and avoiding procrastination or at least circumventing it. It's an issue for everyone that comes into university being motivated and keeping that motivation throughout the year. It's hard. You won't always be motivated. It's something that a lot of people struggle with. um, One of the things I recommend for people who might be struggling with motivation is to always remember your end goal, um, the degree and the life that you want for yourself based on based on you getting that degree. It's always good to keep that in mind, and that end goal, so you always know what you're working for. It's always good to remind yourself of why you're doing this. If you don't and you lose sight of why you're doing this, it will always just feel like endless work after work after work. So that's one way to keep yourself motivated. Another way you can keep yourself motivated is have things like vision boards that you can put up pictures or have quotes or texts of things that you want and expect to achieve by the end of your university degree or even just for the year. Sometimes setting goals that are shorter help with that too. So vision boards and things like that help a lot. As I said a while ago, setting goals for a year or for the month or for the week even are very helpful. Just something that you know that you want to achieve by the end of a certain period of time, that can help keep you motivated because it breaks down the large sum of things that you have to do and things, and keeps reminding you of the things you might want to do, and it'll help you feel accomplished by the end of the week, month, or year when you've done everything on that list. It's very helpful. In terms of staying motivated as well, a good support system is another thing that you should have. Having friends, family, and relatives that can help you and encourage you when things get rough, it's very good. It's a little bit harder in the online space, but it's good to always check in with your friends and they check in on you and all of that stuff. It's our group chats or stuff like that. It's always helpful to have those things because having that support system around you can really keep you going, especially when it starts to get really hard and it's not that easy to keep yourself motivated. Having that external motivation can also help. Another thing is you can set up rewards for yourself if you if you need that external pressure, that same external pressure. You can, if you can say, if you get a certain GPA or get a certain grade in a course, that you'll buy yourself X thing, or you or your parents will buy you X thing or whatever. Those type of external motivations can also help you if you know you struggle with that internal motivation. So that's a good thing that you can do as well. So that's as much as I say for motivation. For procrastination, that is a much more difficult topic. We all, I think most people, it's very common that we struggle with procrastination, especially as students. It's a thing that has plagued every generation. I don't think anyone is very exempt from it. The thing with procrastination is that it's, I'd say for a lot it's inevitable, but the best way is to try and manage it. So I won't tell you to avoid procrastination because that isn't the most realistic advice, because a lot of people, even if you tell them not to, they know they're not supposed to, but they're gonna do it anyways. So what we try to do is manage your procrastination. So try to get as much work done within a certain amount of time. So if instead of procrastinating down to the final minute, maybe you want to leave at least 3 days between an assignment and the time you have to do it. Schedule your time up properly. So say put down the time you're going to dedicate to an assignment and say that is I'm going to use this time for it and don't use it for anything else. One thing I would say about procrastination is that you will always be telling yourself, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I'll do it. The best thing to do is just to start working on it. Once you start working on it, you'll usually get yourself into that flow and you'll find that you will probably finish in no time. It's good to also take breaks, be aware of your energy and your limits. So if you realize you're getting tired and you're burning yourself out, do not keep pressuring yourself to keep going. Take a break and come back to it. It's good to do other tasks sometimes to help with that and then come back and do it. Sometimes that will help with the work, distracting your brain for a minute, doing something relaxing. And the thing about it is when you do take those breaks, do not just take the break and leave it indefinitely and then you end up not going back. Set an alarm on your phone to say after 5 minutes are done, my break is over, and then you can go back to the work. So that's a helpful thing that you can do to ensure you manage those tasks. You can also go on YouTube, Google, look up some YouTubers who give motivation and and talk about how to avoid procrastination as well. Sometimes they have tips. It's good for that to get it from more of a professional source on the whole procrastination thing. Another good tip I'd say with procrastination, a lot of times we procrastinate because we fear failing or we fear that we're not going to succeed, or sometimes we're afraid of succeeding because we don't want to seem better than other people. Sometimes it's a good thing to put those feelings behind you and overcome them so that when you have the work to do, you're not worrying about perfection when you're trying to finish it. You just need to get it started and get it done. You're perfecting it can come after you've gone over and you've iterated and you've rechecked and gone over. Sometimes you just need to get started instead of worrying about making sure it's perfect. Another thing with procrastination and ways to avoid it is ensuring you don't set goals that are too big. So if you have a project, do not look at the project as a whole. It's always best to break up the project into smaller pieces, and that way you have smaller things to aspire to. So if, for example, let's use a computing project, you'll be doing a project in comp 1127. When you do that project, you'll be doing it in a group. One thing is split up the work between your group members. Give each group member something to do, and they will be responsible for that. Further breaking that down, you break down each task into a smaller part. So if you have to code a system that, for example, takes in patients at the hospital, you break that down into the smallest parts, small little snippets of stuff. So when you have that system, you need to take in patients as a hospital, right? That involves different things. One, you need to figure out what is the system going to look like. First, you need to deal with that. How is it going to ask questions to get to put information in system? You finish that. Then you need the system to save all of that information. So you move on to that afterwards. After you get it saved, then you can focus on how you're going to permanently have that in the system. You break it up into those parts, and then sometimes it makes the work seem easier than it actually is because you're working in smaller units of work rather than one massive project. Next thing, um, sometimes procrastination is just due to general lethargy and stuff in life. So if you know that you're that type of person who often lives a sedentary type of life, sometimes it can help to maybe exercise or jog around or do a little something. Do something, have a hobby, something like that, so that you have something to do. So that when it comes time for you to actually do work now, it's not like you're doing an entire 360 on your personality to actually get the work done. You've already been doing things that by choice you are doing. So when it comes to the time for you to have to do something, it's not too much of a struggle for you to do it. Another thing is, as you're in computing, I don't recommend doing this degree if you don't have some level of passion for computing, because it's a lot of work, it's very hard, and it's if you don't have that drive within yourself to want to do it, it's going to feel easy to give up. So I suggest finding that passion in yourself, getting an interest in some aspect of computing, whether you're doing computer science or information technology or software engineering. Find some part of the process that appeals to you and makes you feel good about doing it. So even when you reach the hard parts and the roads of struggle and all of those things that may not seem too easy, it's best to have that to look forward to. So if it's a fact that you like to see a problem solved, you that good feeling you get after you finally solve the problem, run with that and look forward to that. If you like seeing, if you like putting together something and making it look nice, when you make your stuff, make it look nice and you can look forward to that when you're doing it. Find something good about it so that when the rough parts come, you know how to deal with it. And as I said, an important thing is to develop skills that will help you with the task. I had gone over some skills that are very important for doing this degree before, and some of them would fall into this. Developing new skills to help you with procrastination are very important to do. So things like time management, scheduling, all of those things are good skills to develop, not only in computing, but for any other course you might do, because every course at UA will demand a lot of time and a lot of energy from you. Of course, this might happen in varying degrees, but at the end of the day, university is university, and it will be a bit of a rough time when you're trying to manage your time and you have no system at all in terms of managing it. So on that note, I can give some recommendations on things that I and other people I know would use and have I've seen recommended for helping to manage your time. I believe mentioned them briefly on the first night, but I'll go over it again. Google Calendar. I use Google Calendar for my timetable and for assignments sometimes. I have a two-step system for my assignments, but Google Calendar is incredibly good for my timetable because that is linked onto my Google accounts, whether I'm on my laptop or my phone or any. If I don't even have either of them, as long as I can log into my Google account, I have my timetable and I have reminders of whenever my class is, or any events. As a student leader, sometimes we have things to do. I can put those on my Google Calendar. Google will always remind me, internet or not, it will always remind me that I have something to do or I have class at X time. I can even look at my schedule if I need to plan something with somebody. I can use Google Calendar, look at it, and have a good visual view of what my schedule is looking like, so I know how to properly arrange myself. Because once you get to university, and remember, when you get here, you don't only have classes, you'll have clubs, you might take up leadership positions. Your time has to be very much in line and scheduled. You can't just throw things into your time. So it's very important to have that. Outside of Google Calendar, you have apps for both iPhone and Android that are to-do list. I can speak to Todoist. That one's really good. I used TickTick once. I'm not sure if that's for iPhone. I have an Android, but I know TickTick is a good one. Any dot do is so that's ANY dot do for that's another to-do list. But if you don't remember any of those, you can just search up a to-do list app. You will get a long list. You'll see the ratings and the comments and whatever, and you can Google some yourself if you want to do that kind of research, and have a to-do list app or Google Keep if you want that integration with your Google Calendar. um but yeah, get a to-do list app. So when you have things like projects, you can write that you have the project, and then you can break down the project into smaller categories, because most to-do lists, the good ones at least, allow you to break down projects into smaller tasks. So you create a whole project on your to-do list and then smaller tasks to tick off while you're doing the project. So that will help bring you back to point what we were talking about before on procrastination. Having these systems will help you overall in that place. Another thing I recommend, Notion, if you are a power productive person, Notion is amazing. I use it. A lot of other people in the faculty that I know use it. Notion is incredibly powerful. Going over what you can do with Notion would make this live last probably an hour or more. I suggest going on YouTube and searching up like Notion for university students and stuff like that, because you'll get very in-depth videos. On Notion, you can set up your timetable, set up to-do lists, manage your assignments, write notes, everything. Notion can make a big hub for your entire university life, as well as integrate with some of the other stuff that I've spoken about a while ago. So it's a really good thing to have. If you don't want to use Notion, there are other options like Evernote and OneNote. Those are more basic note taking apps. If you are the type who can manage using a book, you're not the book type of person to write out your notes, and sometimes you might want to take screenshots of lecture slides and stuff like that. So you want a digital notebook. Evernote and OneNote are really good for that. But as I said before, Notion is also really good for that. I use Notion. I moved on from OneNote. I use Notion. It's really good for that stuff. But yeah, your other options are OneNote and Evernote. I would recommend OneNote because with your university email, you get a Microsoft OneDrive. You get 1 terabyte of Microsoft OneDrive for free, and you already have a Microsoft account that's hooked up to all the Microsoft stuff. And OneNote is a Microsoft app, so it's I'd recommend that one for a UE student since you already have a Microsoft account with your UE email. So I'd recommend that. Let's see on what the next topic is. Next, we will be going into coping with stress. But before I move on to that, are there any questions about what I would have just said? Anything anybody wants me to clear up? Okay, not seeing any comments, so I'll be moving on. Um, Coping with stress is very difficult at the university level because sometimes you feel like you're constantly being bombarded with work and then this and then that and all types of things. You have a social life to manage, then you have coursework, then you have an exam in a couple weeks and whatever. So sometimes you would constantly feel bombarded, and that can break down anybody. You probably have heard stories where people crying and all types of things because university is so stressful for them. And coping with stress is really important to remember at the university level because it can make and break you. Sometimes you can be going very well for a semester, and then stress hits you, and then suddenly your entire semester is going downhill. So it's important that you manage your stress. When you're feeling yourself getting stressed, even if you have mountains of work to do, take a break, take a minute, because if you are not there to do the work, it no makes sense at the end of the day. So you and your health is first and foremost when you are doing your work. So even if you have, I'm going to repeat it, even if you have mountains of work to do, sometimes you just have to put it down for a bit and take a minute to recenter yourself and ensure that you are okay before you take it up and continue it. Rest yourself. The rest is very important when it comes to dealing with stress. If you don't rest yourself properly, the stress will not go away. I'm telling you that you have to rest yourself. The all-nighters are going to happen here and there, yes, but do not make them a habit. Rest yourself, take sleep sometimes, at least know that you get sleep occasion, at least a good couple times for the week. Know that you do that. And when I say rest, I don't mean rest and think about the work while you're resting. When you rest, put down everything and clear your mind of the work and take a break and relax, let your heart slow down a little bit and take a minute. Another thing you can do is have a hobby, have something that relaxes you, a relaxing hobby at that. So if you are going to live on hall, um There's a lot of the halls have sports, not sports, let me say, workout programs or exercise programs. Sometimes those are nice to go to if you're going to live on hall. If you don't live on hall, sometimes you can do a little thing in your room. I think last year Towers had kept like online workout and soca size type things, so you can join the Instagram lives and go to those and stuff. So it's good to have those little things that you can use to take your mind off the work. If you're not really an exercise type, take up a little thing like painting, drawing, writing, journaling, one of those things that can help you just express yourself and just let go of the work and the stress and not think about it. A very important thing is when you are making your timetables. I know the temptation is online when you're online is to just put everything right, one right after the other, and leave your evenings free and just have the. That's a terrible idea. Don't do it. Leave breaks in between your classes. Sometimes try as hard as possible to leave some breaks in between your classes, so you can have a minute to recover from a class before you move on to the next one. University lectures are not the same as high school classes. There is a lot more content and a lot more information packed into one lecture than there is in a high school class. So you'll be in a lecture for two, I think at a minimum 1 hour. Some are two, some are even three. It's good to make sure you leave space in between your lectures so you have a little bit of time to breathe, maybe take a nap, eat some food, all of that stuff. Ensure that you leave that time, because even though you're online, that doesn't mean that you should pack everything one behind the other. When you're registering, try to leave maybe a day. Try as hard as possible to leave a day free. One thing with me, I always try to leave my Friday free because I know I want my Friday. So leave your Friday free and try and have a day where you can say I only have maybe one class or two class and I can have the day for myself. You relax yourself, you recover from whatever stresses you've had before. Your weekends, try to not do too much on your weekends. Of course, you're going to use the weekends maybe to study, catch up on some coursework and all that stuff, but at the same time, don't make the weekends the same as in the week. That's very important to remember. Your weekends are your weekends. Try to minimize the work. I don't mean completely forget all your work over the weekend, but minimize the amount of work you might do over the weekend compared to what you would do in the week. Stressing yourself out is a terrible idea. Do not stress out and kill up yourself because you want the 4.3 or the 4.0 or whatever. The 4.0 is not going down in the grave with you if you keel over from stress. The 4.0 is not going to pay the hospital bills if you develop any issues from stress. So I'm going to warn you, stress can be very deadly. Do not let university take you out. Be careful of how much work you take on. Stick within your limits and understand your limits. If you take on things and you sometimes we do take on things and we don't realize how much work it's going to be. If you realize you've taken on something and you cannot manage it, drop it. Remember, it is okay to drop things if you cannot manage it. You are not a quitter, you are not any less than because of it. If you have realized that something is overwhelming you and it is cutting into your education and it's cutting into your mental or physical health, drop it. Drop it and leave it alone. No, explain to the people that may be relying on you that it's starting to take a toll on you and you cannot manage it anymore. Give them a week or two to realign themselves and leave. If it's a class that you realize that you're getting into the syllabus and you realize it's not for you, drop it. There's an ad drop period, drop it. If you get into even your computing degree and you realize that the computing degree may not be for you, there's no shame in maybe switching to another department or switching to another faculty. It happens a lot. A lot of people realize that a degree isn't for them, so they may take bow out and take another and maybe do an extra year and try something else at another faculty. This, or as long as it is within your means, it is okay to do things like that. You are not a quitter and you're not any less than. It is all about you at the end of the day. And yes, Kelsey, don't do don't do 67 courses per semester if you know you cannot do it. Some people can do it. That's why it's important to know your limits. There are lots of people out there who may be able to take up the 67 semester courses per semester, but it is very important that you know your limits. If you know that you're not the type of person who is a workaholic and is perfectly organized to be able to do it, don't do it. That's that's what I'm trying to say here mostly. Another important thing with your academic life is that you're going to come to UE. There are going to be people who will do better than you. It is the fact of life. There's always going to be that one person who is higher than you. Don't compare yourself to people. Comparing yourself to people will be your detriment. That will be your demise if you compare yourself to people. Don't run your own race. If you want to set a goal, your goal should be to be better than who you were yesterday, not to be better than John, Tom, and Harry. Don't focus on that. You are running your own race and you are focusing on what you can do. So you are not, if somebody might get A plus in something, and that's fine for them, they got the A plus, congrats to them. But if you got a B and you know you were struggling in that course and you worked really hard to get that B, be proud of that B. Nothing wrong with that. You worked hard and it's your B. Be proud of it. You did that. Because if you worry about how other people say, you're going to stress yourself out and you're going to be demotivated and you're going to just can't bother anymore. So always run your own race. That is one most important. It's like all of these are really important, but I think that is tantamount when it comes to your academic life. Comparing yourself to other people will never help you. Do not go on YouTube and see people with these perfectly curated notes. These YouTubers who get like who say, "Oh, I got 4.0 at Harvard or whatever," and all that stuff. Don't worry about that. You are you, and what you can do is what you can do. And yes, you should strive to do your best, but always remember your best is what is good enough. So if your best was that B plus, be proud of that B plus. But if you know that it wasn't your best, then you know that it's just a sign that you need to work harder. Not that you're not as good as X person, but it's a sign that you within yourself need to work harder. That is an important thing to remember. In terms and other ways to cope with stress is sometimes meditation is good. It's another way that you can take some time and just clear your mind and step away from the hustle and bustle of the world. Um, Another thing is switch up where you go to class. Sometimes it can be really dampening to just sit down at the same desk every day, going to class every minute at the same. Sometimes, like if you have the space, if you have the area, to you can move around sometimes and try somewhere else when you're going to class or when you're doing work or stuff. Sometimes it's really helpful to do work outside. It might make it feel a lot less stressful. Um, Another thing you can do is with your work is set time limits. Sometimes you find yourself that when you're doing your work, you'll sit there for 5, 6 hours straight doing work. Try if you know you're that type of person. Um, Try techniques that can help you limit yourself in terms of how much time you're dedicating to work like that. Balance is very important. So one technique that I know and have used is the Pomodoro technique, where you split up, you set a set time to do your work and you split it up into 25-minute sessions. You take 5 minutes break after each 25-minute sessions, and after about 4 sessions you take a 15-minute break. That's a good way to limit yourself and to break up your work and keep yourself balanced in terms of work and break. Um, I know sometimes in the computing department is notorious for people who aren't the most social people. But I will say this: have a social life. Try. your best to have somewhat of a social life. Have people you can talk to and laugh with and whatever, so it doesn't always feel like you're knee deep in work. That can be a big stressor for a lot of people when they, and I know that a lot of us in this online time, even if you were an antisocial person, you realize that sitting in front of a computer every day by yourself doing this whole school thing makes it a lot more depressing than it may have ever been before. So that's why sometimes it's always nice to have like a little something that you can do that socially, that can bring you a little joy, a little laughter in your life and all that stuff. It's a very good thing to have. Um Next up, let's keep it going. This is a question that I got a few times. You'll learn what social is. You'll figure it out. You're at university. Night 4 is about that, so you'll learn. Next up, we're gonna have this question that I have gotten quite a few times now. So I feel like you guys deserve the answer. Preparing for your exams. That is um that is a big part of your university life. Your exams. This year you said that exams will probably be more than likely be face to face. Final exams, not mid semesters. They haven't said anything about that, but final exams should be face to face, which means studying. We are going to have to ensure that we study effectively if you're going to pass. Um, Swatting, I feel like I said this before, but swatting is a terrible idea at the university level, especially when you get to finals. It's a bad idea. Don't do it. I know it's a very popular thing amongst especially science students where you just take the book and swat everything and then just spit it back out on the exam. Please don't do it. Don't do it. As much as you might feel your skill and can do it, no, you're not. Study for your exams. Please start reading beforehand. Start from September, October. You have mid semesters in October and finals in December. So start reading over from the first class. From you have that first class where you get information, read back over the notes. Read back over the slides. Even if you don't take notes, most lectures, not every single one, but most lectures come with lecture slides. Read them back over. Read them back over from that first class. Your next class, read over. And if you don't want to read over after every single class, make a schedule. You know that you have X classes, and then on the weekend you're going to read this class, and then Monday you're going to read for this class. Just make sure you're always refreshing yourself of the information. And then when exam time comes down to it, you can know it's not a big haste to get to know all of this new content. You already sort of have it in your head. It's just now to refresh and to make that now bring that knowledge back to the forefront so you're prepared for exam. Because with mid semester, as I said, it's 6 weeks into the term, so that's around October. So you have exams basically after a month and a half of school, essentially. So you don't have much time to be wasting time and dilly dallying with studying and all that stuff. It's best to hit the ground. When you go to university, you hit the ground running. So you need to be at a good pace and not walking and then you fall over and drop. Don't do that. Please ensure that you are studying. There are I know a lot of times for coming from high school, there is the question of how do I study? Because a lot of people never learn or didn't need to learn or just simply no one told them how. Studying is not simply just looking at the book and trying to take in information. Studying means you're actively recalling the information that you know. And that is a term that I suggest we do research into. I'll speak on it a little bit here, but active recall is a good technique when it comes to studying. There are lots of different ways to do it. So active recall involves you taking information that you're about to forget and reinforcing the information so that it sticks to your long-term memory. So There are lots of ways to do it. You can Google it and find the techniques and stuff on how to ensure that you make the best use of active recall. Another thing is the Feynman technique. That's another one that I know of, where it's basically based on the statement that if you can't explain something in its basic terms, you don't completely understand it. So that's a good way to help yourself study and to gauge where you are in terms of understanding. So if you have a friend, your parents, siblings, or even a teddy bear, if you want, if you don't have anybody around you, try to teach them. Teach what you are studying. If you find that you cannot break down something that to the point where maybe a 10-year-old or a 5-year-old could understand it, it's possible that you don't understand it fully and you need to go back over and you need to check on what you on your gaps in knowledge. I'm telling you, doing this can often reveal your gaps of knowledge, because if you're trying to explain something and you have to be using these massive terms that people might not understand, it's possible that you don't fully grasp what you're saying, and that is important. So some because when you get into computing exams, one thing about these exams is that they don't just test your knowledge, they test your thinking. And it's important that you can think out what you've learned, and you can't, you learn it in context and outside of context. Because one, you might learn a function that can solve something this one way, but then you might need to apply it later. And because you didn't fully understand it, you don't know how to apply it later. So it's important that you can understand something fully within the context you learned it and how to apply it outside of that context. So it's good to make sure you truly understand something instead of just moving on. And on that note, when you're preparing for your exams and you have those couple lectures before exam, and don't, not even only in those exams but and in those lectures, but even throughout your year, while you're doing lectures and stuff and having your tutorials and whatever, ask questions. It is very, very good to ask questions. Do not worry, say people are gonna think say you're dunce. Don't worry, say people it's embarrassing. Don't think say, oh, I'm shy, blah 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 blah. It's your education at the end of the day. Ask questions if you do not understand. When you get to those final lectures before exams, lectures are usually a lot more open into taking on questions and stuff like that and going over things. So ask your lecturer a lot of questions. When you have class reps, please make sure when you get your class rep, they're a good class rep that will stand up for you, and you know that they will do a good job. Because this is where sometimes it comes in. You can ask your class rep to ask the lecturer if they can have a review class or some of that stuff if the lecturer didn't plan to. Sometimes they plan to, sometimes they don't. So it's good when you have a class rep that you can go to and ask, can you ask the lecturer to do a review class? And then you can do a survey in the class, ask people what you guys never understand, and go to the lecturer and say, we don't understand these things. Can you explain it? And on that note too, when you're preparing for your exams, you're not going to understand everything. That's a fact. Don't expect that you're going to understand everything a week before exam, even a week before exam, or so you won't understand everything. What is important is that you know exactly what you don't understand, so that when you go to ask questions, you can properly articulate yourself on what you need help with. It doesn't make sense that you go to somebody for help and you just say, I need help, because then I don't know, they don't know, you don't, if you don't know what you need help with, how are they going to tell you what you need to do? So make sure you get what you don't understand, what you're losing out on, where you were lost when you're asking questions and when you're preparing yourself for exams and all, and to do assignments and projects and all of those things. Ensure that you are aware of exactly what you don't understand, what topic you're dropping in, and why you are lost on something. So when you ask, because if you go to a lecture and you want them to do a review class, it don't make sense to go to the lecture and say, sir or miss or whatever, can you go over the course, please? They can't teach you everything from September up to exam in one class again. So it's best to understand what you don't understand, what to know what you don't understand, so that when you might want to ask a lecturer for help, you email your lecturer and ask them a question about something, or you want them to have a review class, you can explain to them exactly what you need them to go over, so that they can best help you. Because a lot of times people will complain, say, oh, the lecturer wicked and lecturer this and that. It's just because you didn't articulate yourself properly why they're not best able to help you. So it's important that you do that. Um, Again, on the note of asking questions, do not wait until exam time for you to be asking questions. If you are lost on something, you are paying your tuition, ask your question. Don't worry about say you're holding up the class or whatever. Ask your question. Do not wait until it's exam time and you are lost and you are drowning, and that is when you're going to tell somebody, me not understand nothing from first class till now. That's not what are you going to do then? You there's nothing more you can do. And as I said, failure at university will cost you. So it is important that you try your best. I'm not saying it's bad to fail, but make sure you failed knowing you tried your best and not because you made these simple mistakes. So ask questions. If you are not completely comfortable with asking questions, that is where, as I said several times, knowing your classmates comes in handy. Ask questions. We had in my year we had a group where we all were in it, and a lot of the times it was us helping each other that really got us through the course, not necessarily the lecturer always going to the lecturer. So sometimes it's the teamwork in the class. We are all suffering together as a computing family. So help each other, ask for help and help each other. If someone is struggling with something and you see it, help them. If you know you're struggling with something, it's okay to post a question. Usually, no one's looking down on you for it. So just ask and help. Um, when you're doing this, it's important to remember to be respectful to your peers. Do not go into people's inbox at 2 a.m. in the night because you're struggling with a lab. Do not go call them when you don't know them like that and you're going to call them and you've never asked if you can call them before. It's usually best to ask somebody if you can call them and you want help. So as I said, when you're asking for help, ensure you treat the person with respect. This extends to your lecturers as well. When you're forming your questions to ask your lecturer, make sure you treat them with respect and you ask your questions respectfully, so that no one feels like they're like if you're because they're not obligated to go that extra mile for you, but you are asking for them for help, and if they are willing to do so, then they can help you. So that's why it's always good to lead with respect, and oftentimes that will help you form relationships that will last a long time and will always help you out. As I said, with your classmates, you don't know who's going to become what, so it's always very good to make sure you have a level of respect with all your batchmates. Yes, you can run joke here and there, but ensure you keep that level of respect with your lecturers. Lecturers are they oftentimes lecturing isn't their only job, and a lot of times they have connections in the field. So it's always good to make sure you're on a good note with your lecturers. Do not burn any bridges when you come to UE like that. So that's an important note. Um, Next up, we have got um mastering coding. That's a tricky question, tricky topic, because I don't know if there are people out there who disagree with me, but I think the majority can agree that you really and truly never will. You'll never really and truly master coding. It's kind of like math, where there's always going to be one next thing. There's always going to be something you don't know, something else. And as I said, with coding, coding is really a tool um, for problem solving. Computer science and information technology and all the majors in this department are first and foremost problem solving degrees. They're all about problem solving and use different tools to solve those problems. Coding is one such tool. So if you don't have the skills to utilize coding effectively, you're not going to be good at it. You can know everything about a language. You can know how to do every single thing in Python. But if you don't have the problem solving skills to apply it, you won't reach anywhere. So I don't, as I said, I don't think you can master it because there's just so much you can do with coding, and there's always a new problem and a new way you can do it. And as I've said this before, that there is never ever one singular solution to a problem. Two people can have two entirely different answers that are nowhere close to each other, and they're both equally right. So it's one thing that I'll say I don't think you can really and truly master it. You can get good at it, you can get skilled at it, but I don't think even people have been in the field for years. I don't think anyone's truly mastered it. One thing with coding and computer science and IT as well, in the any sort of degree that has to do with technology, the field is always changing. The field is constantly changing and evolving. So even when you leave university and you go off to work and stuff, there might be new technologies and new things and new ways to do things that you now have to learn and go over and whatever. So sometimes you just have to understand that you'll always be doing something new. You'll always be learning. It's kind of like medicine where you're always learning. There's always new information out there. So so instead of being in the mindset to master coding, the best thing to be in the mindset of is constantly learning. Always expecting to be constantly learning and being okay with accepting all of that information. Not the thirst for knowledge is a very good quality to have when you're doing computing because, as I said, I think on the first night, your lectures do not cover everything there is to know about coding. Your lectures won't cover everything there is to know to solve a problem. Your lectures won't cover everything you need to know. They won't hold your hand to be able to solve the situations you might even get in labs sometimes. So it's important that you yourself go out and seek that knowledge to get good at coding and remember that it is simply a tool. It is always just a tool. It's never seriously the thing that, it's not the thing that solves the problem. You are what solves the problem. Coding is just the means to an end. So you should, when you get a lab or when you get a tutorial or you find something on exam, sometimes it should be that you already know the answer and what you want to do. The only problem you have is you need to translate that to code. That is it. You should already have an idea of what you are trying to do and how you're going to do it. And then you're going to put that into code. That is how you need to approach your degree when it comes to quote unquote, mastering coding. So it doesn't matter the language, whether you're doing Python, Java, C, or the plethora of other language, JavaScript, any of those languages out there, C sharp, any of them, whichever one it is. At the end of the day, it's just a difference in syntax. Essentially the way that you write your code. That's the only difference. You should already know, I want to do this. The only question you should be asking is, how am I going to write code that does X thing? So if I want to write code that counts from 1 to 10, I know that to count from 1 to 10, I have to keep adding 1 to the last number, and that's it. That's it. I've solved my problem. I just need to keep adding 1 to the previous number over and over and over again. What you need to do now is figure out, in the language that I am now coding in, how do I add 1 to a number and constantly keep doing that over and over again until I get to 10? That's how you need to think about it. Don't think about what in Python comes from 1 to 10 over and over. That's not how you think about it. You need to think about what in Python adds to a number until I get to 10. That's how you would think about that when you're going into coding. As I've said before, YouTube is a great resource on, learning more about the things that you can do in a language. Basic tutorials. When you go on YouTube, you're going to find things that are 40 odd minutes long. Sorry to say, you're probably going to have to watch them The whole 40 minutes to an hour, um, it's just a part of life. You're gonna have to sit there and take in all that content, make your notes and whatever. Um, when you have your lectures, you can bring it up in class with your lecturer if you don't understand something. They're not evil at this level. They're not evil. They're not trying to bite. None of your lecturers are particularly against you. So if you found something online that you're not sure about and you realize that it may relate to what you're learning, it's okay to ask your lecturer. Sometimes even after class, when the class is done, your lecturer might not even necessarily have a problem just answering any random little question you have about coding. So utilize your lecturers, ask them questions, delve into what they know, pick their brain for stuff like that. Be a studious student when it comes to those things. That's the best way I can say you can truly get very good at coding. Practice is important too. Don't only code when you have a lab, even though you get those every week. Try doing stuff outside of it. Play around with what you've learned. That's a good way to really get what you've learned and see what you understand and what you don't understand, what you can do with things, what you can't do with things. Practice. Look online for different problems and see if you can solve them. Experiment with the things you've learned. Nothing is wrong if you get a couple errors here and there and you break a few things. Break away, figure it out, learn how certain errors work and how to fix them. All that stuff. Practice, practice, practice. As I said, computer science is a science, and just like math, practice is key. Um, Before I move on, I'm going to ask again, are there any questions, anything anyone wants me to clarify about what I have just said? Anything, any tips you might want that I didn't bring up, or anything you might want me to clarify? Anybody have anything? All right then. No, I will continue on. Um, Someone had asked me, what is the first year syllabus like? And I feel like I've sort of answered this question a bit, but I'll still talk on it. Just to go over the required courses for completing our Comp 1126, Comp 1127, Comp 1210, Comp 1220, and Comp 1161, which is done in second semester only. Um, that is what your computing syllabus will be made up of. There will be other electives around that, but I will speak on the required courses for first year computing. Um, for first year, you only have one math course, and that would be Comp 1210, which is math for computing. So you don't have to worry about that yet, but don't completely write off the math. But yeah, as far as that goes, you will only have to really worry about that in terms of math. I know a lot of people get afraid because they hear that computer science is big on the math and whatever. But for your first year, you don't really have much of that to deal with outside of maybe a few labs that will ask you to code some mathematical thing or whatever. But usually it's not very centered around the actual math itself and more on you coding something. Um, you have your lectures when you do Comp 1126 and 1127. Your lectures will cover a different aspect of something in Python and how you can use that to solve a problem. Each lecture usually the lectures can move by really fast. Um, so that's why I say it's important to ask your questions because the lectures can move by really fast as there is a lot of workload. Computer science does have a pretty hefty workload in terms of that stuff. So that's one thing you need to consider when you're doing a syllabus. You have for Comp 1126, you do not have a project since or yeah, you don't have a project. You have mid-semester exams. Um, So you have that to do. The labs, there's labs every week. I don't think you really have much other coursework for 1126 other than that. 1127, you'll have your labs every week. You have your tutorials. Same with 1126, you have tutorials there too. But as I've said, tutorials are not graded, they're not required, but they are there to better your understanding of the topic. So it's good to go to them. It's very much recommended that you go to them. No one's forcing you to, but I recommend that you do. Um, for 1127, it is a lot harder. I won't say a lot. It's a little bit harder than 1126. It goes more in depth into what you've learned. It it starts to go into concepts that are little less concrete. There are concepts that are a bit more that you require to expand your thinking a little bit. So if you're a critical thinker, 1126, 1127 will be the one for you. Yeah, so if you aren't hot on the critical thinking skills, it's good to work on those in preparation for 1127. It will 1127 will really test your knowledge of Python and the creative ways that you can use it. So that's one thing I would say about that. You have a project to do. Usually, it's a project that's broken up into like a good amount of parts. I think for my set, we got 10 parts in total to do for it. It is a group. It was a group project for us. I assume it will also be a group project for you. Um, so it's good to get to know your classmates so you know who to get into a group with. And we got to choose our group mates. It wasn't randomly selected. So yeah, so it's good to have that in mind so you can choose a good group and ensure that the project will be not easy. I will tell you that. It will test everything you know from 1126 and everything in 1127, and sometimes even more than that. It's like it's expected that you are reading, so sometimes it will test even more than that, and you might have to draw for Google and all that stuff to really help you out. So for the project, you it's very much a challenge. So prepare for that. When you get to 1220, that is computing and society. If you do 1220 in the first semester, assuming nothing changes about how the course is delivered, um, it should you have a 3 hour lecture, one 3 hour lecture for the week and one tutorial for the week going over what you would have done in that lecture. I will be very honest here. That 3 hour lecture is rough. It is not the easiest thing to stay attentive in, um, especially when it's online. So I would suggest getting yourself comfortable for your Comp 1220 lecture and trying to keep yourself attentive during it. Information, and because it's 3 hours, that in there's a lot of information that goes through it. It's jam packed with information. It is really one of the only inform like in terms of like reading type of information where like that it's one of the only courses that you do in computing first year that would have information like that. There's no technical anything to it really. There's no sort of working out or anything to do. It's just raw information. So that's if you're not very good with that, come 1220 might be a struggle for you. So I would suggest that you sort of prepare for that. um for come 1220, make notes. Try as hard as possible to make notes. I made the mistake of not doing that. It was not pretty. I would rather not talk about it, but it was not make notes. As much as something might not seem important during the class, it will probably come up later. Make notes. Um, for you have projects, you have an animation project to do. You will have to make an animation. Um, the animation is probably going to be the most rough thing you do in 1220. It can be very, it can be a bit consuming. You will want to have, you'll want to get started on the animation as soon as you can, as soon as you're given the assignment. Start it. You don't have to do it all at once. because it is a project you get over time. You don't have to do it all at once, but at least start doing it here and there, because it's very easy if it's very easy to forget 1220, because as I said, it's not really, it's not technical. So a lot of people tend to forget it because it doesn't have a whole heap of course. You're not getting coursework every week, and you're not really you don't really have to be doing all of this struggle to understand what's going on. So a lot of people tend to forget about 1220. And then when they have the animation project, it's a big struggle for them to really catch up, and they have to do it last minute and whatever. So for 1220, I suggest for the animation that you stick to it and start to do it early. You'll also get a website to do. The website is done in, I think, Weebly. Yeah, Weebly.com, if anyone's familiar with that. If you're not, you can go. Let me put it up here so you guys can check it. Weebly.com. So this is what you would be using. That would be what you are using to do your website. The group website, that is. You have two websites to do, actually. You have a group website where you'll be picking a topic, and you'll be essentially making a website dedicated to that topic. It's usually related to some current affairs in computing, so you'll have that to do. For IT people, I believe that Com 1220 is not required for your degree, but it is an recommended elective. So I would suggest you just do it anyways, because at the end of the day, you're gonna need an elective to fill that in. um useweebly.com. And then for your second website, that will be a personal website that is about you. You will get the details about what's supposed to go into that website, but it's not done using Weebly or Wix or any of those things. You will have to learn some HTML, and the HTML is essentially the website, the language used to make, well, there are arguments that HTML is not a coding language, but this is not the space for that. HTML is what is used to create websites. They're the backbone, quote unquote, of the internet. So you will have to learn a bit of that to make your personal website. I believe you're marked on your creativity and whatnot and stuff for the Weebly one. For the individual one, I think you're marked on information and ensuring you hit all the things they ask for, all the content, and that you've used the things they ask for effectively. So don't worry too much about making your HTML website the greatest website ever. I will say that there will be people in your class who are familiar with HTML and are going to make websites that look spectacular and amazing and whatever. As I said, don't compare yourself to people. Don't watch people. Make your thing. Make your thing as best as you can make it, and work with that. Don't worry about the advanced people who might have done this before. Um, don't worry about being extra and all of that. Just do what you want to do. If you want to be extra, that is really up to you. And then that is it for your first semester. On your second semester, you'll be doing 1161. That is Introduction to Java. You will be learning object-oriented programming. I will admit to you, Java is a little bit harder to grasp. Okay, not a little, a lot. Java, if you've never done coding before, if you didn't do computer science, Java can be a big change from Python. Java is a lot less free flowing. It's a lot more strict with how it goes about doing things, and it's a bit more, how do I say, intimidating when you look at it. So I would recommend that before you go into second semester, do a little reading up on Java over your Christmas break. I know it's not fun doing schoolwork when you have vacation, but if you really want to succeed, it's good to do some extra reading during your break and get yourself a little familiar with Java. You don't have to go into big depth and know everything before class starts, but it's good to get yourself a little bit familiar with it so that when you go into class, there are a few familiar things, because Java, the topics go, it's a new topic every week. Every week it's something new. For my class, I'm not sure if that's how it will be done for your set, but for us, we were doing 3 topics every single lecture. So we had 2 hours of lecture every Monday, and there would be 3 topics covered in those 2 hours. So it's a lot of content when it comes to Java. JetBrains is incredibly good. If you want to learn Java beforehand, some people swear by it. You'd swear they're sponsored by JetBrains, but I haven't used it personally, but I have. There are a lot of people that recommend it. So I'll say if you want to get a head start on Java over your Christmas break, go on JetBrains and do some of do like the quick Java course and get yourself a little familiar with it before you go into the course because it is very intensive. It also has a project. The project is big. It's going to be hard. It changes every year, so I can't exactly tell you exactly what you're going to get on it, but it is not going to be easy. Um, it is a group project, so whereas usually it is a group project, it doesn't have to be a group project. I'm going to warn you on that. So don't go and say me say it's going to be a group project. It doesn't have to be a group project, but it is usually a group project, or it can be both individual and group. Sometimes they might give you one part individual to do, and then they give you another part to do in a group. So with that, expect anything for your Java project. The Java project will not only test the limits of your understanding of Java, but your creativity and your ability to make something look good using code, as well as solving complex real world type problems in Java using the code. So it's very important that you are well acquainted with Java. Just like with labs, you will be asked questions on the things you've done and the choices you've made when you get to the end of the project. So it's good to understand everything. With Java, that is where a lot of people fall off when it comes to computing. Java is the 1161 really can be a very tough one to pass. But as I said, if you prepare yourself and teamwork, ask for help and everything from people who seem to understand, um, yeah, it's possible to pass it. But yeah, Java, if you ask any of the seniors in the group or anything, they'll tell you that Comp 1161 was a rough time for all of us. So yeah, that's that with the syllabus for first year. That's your computing syllabus. There are I will let me speak on crit. Since I know everybody will have to be doing that. That's a foundation course, and a lot of people choose to do it in their first year. So let me touch on that a little bit. Crit. If you know any UE students, or if you've heard anything about UE before, or whatever, people will tell you that crit is the worst thing, the worst thing that you'll have to do. If you don't know what I'm talking about, crit is found 1014. That's critical reading and writing in sciences or something like that. I don't remember the exact word, but yeah, it's critical reading and writing. It is done with compute with science, faculty of science and technology, and medical faculty of medical sciences. So you'll have med sci people in your classes when you do crit. Um, if you did not pass the ELPT and you didn't get a 1 or 2 in com studies, and you didn't get a 1 or 2, you didn't get a 1 in CSEC English, you will be required to do Phone 1019, which is a year-long version of crit instead of 1 semester. So I would suggest that if you need to do the ELPT, please go do it and please ensure you pass it because crit isn't something you want to be doing over the course of an entire semester, trust me. Um, for crit, 2 things are important: your tutor and your group. Ask around about the tutors. I won't go over it here, but ask around about tutors. Ask people's opinions on certain tutors and see who's right for you. The tutors in crit are not like the tutorials in crit is not like the tutorials in computing. They are necessary. You need to go to your tutorials. They are mandatory. You have to go to them, and you cannot bounce around from tutorial to tutorial. Once you choose a tutorial in crit, you have to stick to that one. So that's why I'm saying when it comes to registering, Ask your seniors, ask in the group. We are here. Ask about who you recommend if you're considering a certain tutor. Ask questions. See who is right for you. The second thing is your group. Your group is very important. One thing I did for crit, plan with your friend them. Plan with the whole of your friend them to join the same seminar. Plan up, and all of you try and get into the same group. Depending on the tutor, they may assign you into a random group, or if you beg hard, and if you have a tutor who will sorry for you, if you ask, they might let you choose your groups. But I suggest that you try. If you know that you're good with your friends and your friends will do their work. I'm not saying that just because of your friend, you're going to go into the same. If you know that your friends will do their work, then you can all plan together and try and register for the same seminar so that you can have a good group. Or at least you know you have somebody in your group that you can probably rely on. The crit seminars are usually, the groups are not as big, the classes aren't very big, so you will have the opportunity to ask questions and delve into exactly what you need to do. Critical reading and writing is not an exam subject. There's no exam for it. It is entirely coursework. It is it's group work that you'll be doing over the course of the entire semester. So that is one thing you need to keep in mind. Crit is not going to be math calculations or any of that. Crit will be essays and writing and reading. You'll be doing, you have to present a scientific research proposal. So you're going to have to read into scientific papers, studies those long scholarly articles with all the big words and everything. You're going to have to be doing a lot of reading into that. You're going to have to be understanding it, and you're going to have to write properly about it, like actual deep analysis into what you're reading about the topic that you choose for that. So you'd have to be very careful with your group, and you have to be on your P's and Q's when you're doing crit. Just like 1220, SciTech students have a tendency to forget about crit because it is the most unlike the courses that they normally do. It's not, it doesn't have any of that technical stuff to it or anything like that, or any of the math or the scientific nature of it. It's very much sort of like Com Studies 2.0. So SciTech students really have a tendency to forget. Um, Please don't do that. It will catch up with you, and crit is not something you can do last minute. If we spoke on procrastination, but with crit, I would say just avoid the procrastination on crit. Honestly, just avoid it. Don't even try and play with it when you're doing crit. Be on your P's and Q's. When you get a crit assignment, do it. If it's not even same time the day you get it, start it the day you get it. At least start, because crit can creep up on you very easily. And while it's very possible that you can get a high grade in crit. It's not like it's impossible, but it will demand a lot from you to get that high grade. Crit is not an easy A. It's possible to get the A, but it is not an easy A. So that's what I will say on that. So that's and that will be as much as I'll say about your first year syllabus without diving into the nitty-gritty stuff. If you want to know more about like specific electives or specific courses like maybe CaribCiv or LonGov or any of those things, or what it's like to do a language or whatever, the group is there. I recommend going into the group, asking. There are seniors there who have done this stuff. If they're not seniors who know, we can find out and ask for you. So I recommend, if you have any of those questions, ask in the group. It's there. So I'll be moving on now to the next thing I have here, which is the best and worst parts of you. Oh wait, I have a question. Um, how much members are normally a part of a group? Are you talking about crit? If you're talking about crit, I'm trying to remember. I think it's about 4 to 5 people in a group. Um, for their projects for like 1161 and 1127, it will be probably 3 to 5 people in a group, depending on what the lecturer might want out of you or what they expect you to do. Yeah, it would be like 3 to 5 people for the group. So I didn't know which one you meant, so I answered for all of them. So yeah, there's that. Um, so yeah, back to what I was saying. Yeah, our last topic for the night will be the best and worst parts of your academic life at UWE. This question was really tough because I don't want to come on the people them platform and slander the people them university and all of these things. But I will say that the best parts of UWE, for me so far, the best parts of UWE have been the friends I've made. Um, the suffering through SciTech forms some bonds that I don't think are easy to break like that. SciTech is rough, and the friends you make through SciTech are the greatest set of people. Sometimes, with let's see, in terms of academics itself, I'd say that one of the best things about UWE is that it will challenge you. If you like a challenge, it will definitely challenge you and bring out the inner thinker inside of you. If you don't bring out that inner thinker, that critical thinker, it you won't make it. Sorry to say, but like it sounds bad, but you won't make it. You have to bring out that inner thinker in you. It teaches you a lot of resilience and all of that stuff in terms of getting the work done. UE, another thing with it is that UE is a big hub for getting those networking links. It's good to do all of that stuff with UE. I say the worst part about doing computing at UE is a lot of the times you will feel like you're on your own. As I said, there's not much hand holding at UE. As much as we start from the basics, it's you don't really get your hand held, so you have to really do your research and ensure that you are reading and you're going over this content and all that stuff. Because one of the worst things about UE is that you can feel like you're being left high and dry if you aren't really, getting into your work or taking your education into your own hands. Um, what else can I say about my experiences personally? Um, Another thing with UE is that one of the worst things is that sometimes you can feel overwhelmed really easily if you don't really get yourself in order. So that's another thing that can really be bad. It's very easy to overwhelm yourself if you're not careful. Um, Trying to find another positive. Let me see. A positive thing is that UE prepares you for prepares you for the world. I'd say, in the fact that UE doesn't cut corners with making you get very exposed to what life is like. So I'd say that's sort of a double-edged sword. It can be good, it can be bad, but UE will definitely prepare you for what life can be like. So that is that for what I'll say on the best and worst parts of UE. Um, so that is my last topic for the night. I have decided to dedicate the last part of this session to just any questions you have. Anything, whether it's from the past 2 nights, something new that I've mentioned tonight, or something, any questions you might have, just leave them in the comments and I will answer. So yeah, I'll just leave the floor open for that. If I don't get any questions, I will just end it here. So yeah, if you have any questions, yeah, leave them. I'm looking. Okay, so not a question, but You're welcome. You're very welcome for the sessions. I just want to make sure you guys get transitioned as smoothly as possible into university. So yeah, that's that for the session. So you're welcome. You're very much welcome. Um how do we go about academic counseling? Going about academic counseling, there are academic counselors provided by the university. If you want, message in the group, and I will about getting academic counseling, and I will ask to get the contact information for the academic counselors so that you can get some information on how on what you should do and what you need to do. Usually the academic counseling will probably go in more in depth on the things that I would have said here. So if you want that, ask in the group and I will go look about that for you if I can. Um, this says university does sound safe. Honestly, it's not safe for real, University university is a test of champions, to be very honest. University can be a wild ride, but it can be a fun one if you find your stride and you get a good crowd. You can make the most of your university career. We have a question here. Any suggested courses for the preliminary year of computer science? I believe I mentioned this on night one, but let me go over it again. So a suggestion for prelim computer science, I would say, is to do math and bio. Math helps with your setting a math foundation for computing, and bio, out of chem, physics, and bio, I would say bio might be the most manageable science, in my opinion. So don't take what I say as gospel, but I'm saying, in my opinion, I think bio might be the most manageable science. Um, but to say that's just my suggestion. It's a choice out of math, physics, bio, and chem. So if you know that you have a strength in one of those things more so than the other, don't follow exactly what I say and go do it and end up struggling. Pick what you have a strength in. So if you know you're not going to do math very well, don't pick math. That just you know you're not good at physics, don't pick physics. If you know you're not going to do the drawing labs for bio, don't pick bio. Um, Pick what you know you have some kind of strength in or what you're willing to do. Because for prelim year, you have to ensure that you pass. It is paramount you ensure that you pass your prelim year, because with prelim you're already doing an extra year. You don't want to end up failing something because you're not good at it, and then you end up having to do 5 years instead of 4. So I would suggest make sure you pick what you're good at or you can manage. Even if you're not necessarily good at it, pick what you know you can manage. So if you know you cannot do the whole chemistry thing, don't pick up chemistry. You know you can do the whole physics thing, don't pick it up. What if you don't have clear strengths? As I said, just pick what you know you won't fail. Pick what you know that you won't fail. So if you can struggle through and pass in maths, struggle through and pass the maths. You don't have to get the most excellent grades. Just make sure you pass. So that's what I'll say. Always strive for excellence, but at the end of the day, just make sure you pass, please. Um, so yeah, are there any other questions before I close off completely for the night? Do we get to participate in first year courses that don't have these requirements? I also think I mentioned it on the first night. I am not sure, but let me go over it. If you are a computing student doing a preliminary year, um, you can do Comp 1220 and Comp 1210 in your preliminary year, because those courses do not have prerequisites. So that is something that you can do from your preliminary and you won't have them to do when you matriculate into the faculty and you do level 1. So yes, you can register for Comp 1220 and Comp 1210, but any course that has a prerequisite, you're gonna need to you can't do them. So that is it. So if you see a course and it says that it has no prerequisite, it says none, then you can do it. If the course shows some form of prerequisite, then no, you cannot do it. Hope that cleared that up. If you didn't get what I fully said, tell me please, and I'll explain again. But in the meantime, we move on. How can I do the ELPT exam? Um, that's not something I can answer right now. Ask in the group. Put it back down in the ask the question back in the group so that I can get that information to you and put it back in the group so a lot of anybody else who has this question can also get information. So yeah, I can't answer that right now. I don't know the exact to do it, some of it, but I don't know the exact procedure. So I'll get back to you on that. Just put the question in the group chat and so I can remember to go for it. Is there any other question? Anything else? Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions coming in. So I think that I can call it there. Thank you guys for coming out once again. It's night 3. Night 4 is going to be about your social life at UWI and what having a social life is and what it's like online. It's going over clubs and societies and all of that thing and all that stuff. So if you're interested in things like clubs and all that stuff and networking and all of that stuff, I will be giving you all the information on that. I hope that on that night we can also play some games as a computing bunch and you guys can get to maybe know some of your classmates and stuff like that. So that will not be tomorrow. Tomorrow is a holiday. So no, that will not be tomorrow. Night 4 will be on Saturday night. So I hope you guys can make it for that. Again, I want it to also be a games night. So come prepared to be competitive and to beat up some people in some games and stuff like that. As I said, with the ELPT process, I cannot address that right now because I'm not sure of the exact process and I don't want to give inaccurate information. So what I will do is I will find out from the higher ups who will know exactly what to do and I will post it in the group so that you guys can get that information. So I can't answer it no in this forum, but I will get that information to you. So look out in the group for that information. But yeah, until then, good night, guys. I'm glad that I could help you guys with this transition, and I hope to see you on Saturday night for night 4, the final night. There will be giveaways and surprises and stuff, so please come prepared for that. And all of that stuff. Night 4 is supposed to be the best night to me, so please come out and encourage other people to come out too and attend because I really hope that will be fun. I don't think that night 4 will be on YouTube, so prepare for that as well. But yeah, that's it. Good night, everybody. Have a good night. That's a wrap for this.